everyone. On this episode of Teeter Talks, I had so much fun, maybe too much fun, chatting with a good friend of mine, Jay Whitelaw. Jay is the founder of Givesome. This man has made the business of giving his whole life. I have never met someone so committed to bringing people along the journey of generosity. He has built charities, foundations. He has empowered people and companies to maximize the power of giving back, to leverage doing good, to serve so many people. And I'm so thrilled I get to call him my friend. You will hear so many incredible stories on this episode, and hopefully you'll be inspired to fuel your own giving in your own way. Everybody, please enjoy my conversation with Jay Whitelaw. Hey, Jay.
Hey, Marissa, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you doing? It's good to see your face.
It's always good to see your face and look forward to any time we get to hang out and chat together. Yeah.
Agreed. We've known each other for, oh gosh, I was trying to do the mental math this morning, like maybe 10 years. Does that sound
Yeah.
right?
Let's not try and do the math.
Okay.
Let's just,
Okay. It's
but
been
I
a
think you're
while.
right. I met you right at the beginning of the whole sort of give some journey, and it's been
Yeah.
10 years. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's right around the decade mark. Isn't that crazy?
It
Yeah.
is bananas how fast time flies.
hmm
I would have, I feel like I knew it was 10 years, but I probably didn't want to believe that,
I know.
truthfully.
I know. We're the same
It's
though,
crazy.
right? We look the same. We're just smarter and
Oh my God.
wiser.
I
But
haven't aged at all, especially if I
no,
don't update my profile photos or my headshots. It's
yeah,
like, it's
and
not
no
even
one can
happening.
tell.
No, exactly. Not
Uh,
nearly enough filters to slap on this
oh man,
podcast, but
yeah.
nonetheless. So you already mentioned Givesome, and that's how we connected. And Givesome is a charitable movement that you've started, and you've been at this for over 10 years, but you continue to evolve and adapt to what's going on in the charitable space landscape and really what our world needs in terms of support in the non-for-profit space. You have ultimately dedicated your life to giving back
Mm.
and doing good. Maybe this makes you uncomfortable to hear it, but you're going to hear it. It's so remarkable to me because it has not been an easy journey. It has been such a long journey with some major wins along the way, impacting so many lives. I mean, we should have those stats of the amount of,
Mm.
or maybe you know them, but where does this, how do you decide to commit your life to doing good in this way?
Whew, yeah, good question. I'm going to steal an answer that I give. I live in Guelph here, as well. No, you're not in Guelph anymore, are you?
No, I've now
You've
moved to what I like to call country light, where
yes,
there's a lot of nature, but if I am screaming for help, my neighbors will still hear me.
yeah, and you're basically in Guelph. You're
I
like
am
5 minutes
basically,
outside. Yes.
yes.
But in Guelph, the University of Guelph, there was a professor who, for several years, asked me to come in and talk about startup and start like with his fourth year students. There's about 200 or 300 of them, and in kind of preparing for that class, that I'll give you the answer that I give that class, and because I just realized that most, I think I haven't done serious heavy research on this, but I would say most entrepreneurs that I've met anyways or I've read about sort of have had sort of like that entrepreneurial blood kind of coursing through their veins from a
Mm,
young age, and they always kind of knew maybe not necessarily what they were going to do, but that they were going to do something, uh, branch out on their own, and just sort of like take that risk. And I think that's probably the vast majority of entrepreneurs. And then I think there's a smaller little subsect of entrepreneurs that I fit into. And when I was in the course, I'd always get people to raise their hands. Do you fall into this? And it was, most people said, yes, that was who I am. I always knew I was going to do it. But I think there's a small little category of people that become entrepreneurs, not because they've ever thought they would do it, but because
mm,
they just bumped up against something or saw something or felt something that they're like, nope, not going to sit back and do nothing. I'm going to do something. And I can't believe I'm the one that's doing this, but I'm going to see how this goes. But they're just so compelled in a particular moment or because of a certain experience. So I think that is sort of the answer to your question. I think that's what had me move in this direction was not because I thought I was the person for the role by any means, or because I had any business experience, or launching my own companies or anything like that. But I was always around generosity and saw it in my parents. But um, I just had an experience early on when I was fairly early on. I was 24, 25, and that it changed me. I was like, I can't experience this and then not do anything about it. And so I tried not to do stuff about it for a while, and then I just finally just caved in. I said, okay. So yeah, I think and that passion, like you said, yeah, it's been a lot of ups and downs. But that one particular passion and thought around giving has so compelled me that even in like the worst times or the toughest times, it's like, no, but I still believe in that. I still believe that at the, whatever it is that's at the core of generosity still is such a powerful thing, and the world
Mhm.
needs it
Yeah.
and needs more of it and needs people that are kind of pushing it. And so yeah, it's kept me going, and it's what started and it's what kept me going. So
I'm glad you brought up entrepreneurship because you building out this charitable movement required you to be an entrepreneur. Like you were ultimately building a business of doing good. You were
mm,
in the business of helping spread generosity and help people feel the impact of it, making sure the generosity got to those who needed most and that those who were generous felt the impact of it and fueled this movement. So there's a big element of being an entrepreneur. So to your point, you had no formal business background, but not only are you creating a movement and building a charity and needing to understand what that's about, you're also building a business. And it's amazing because, I mean, you said it, you're in the business of generosity, which is something that's relevant all the time. You don't have to
mm,
worry about your product or service not being relevant, not being impactful, not being needed. Of course, it has to take many different shapes and forms to be packaged properly and to be received properly. But you have really dedicated yourself to the business of doing good. And in the mantra of Give Some, it's do the good, see the good, do the good. No, do the good, see the good. Oh my gosh, I should know this.
you're close on one of
Shame
them.
on me.
Give a little, see the good. You got to see the good, which
I'm
is
so
the
I knew
biggest
the see
kind
the
of
good was the
focus of
important
ours.
part.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was
that's
give a
okay.
little, and that was the essence of what you were trying to create with Give Some. You were trying to create a platform where people could give as little as $2
Mm,
through an app, through a website, to very specific initiatives like providing bicycles to children in Africa so they could get to school. So you would give collectively, a bunch of people would give a small amount, raise a large amount together. The initiative or the project would take place, and then all the people who contributed would get a video and a thank you message so they could see
mm,
these kids riding these bikes in Africa and really seeing the impact. And I think for you kind of alluded to it because I want to talk about this. There was something about seeing and feeling the impact that set
mm.
you on this journey to where you are. So let's go back because I know this
Yeah,
story, but people listening don't. Tell us
yeah,
what that pivotal moment was for you that really changed your life and set you on this path.
yeah, yeah. Um, so that was back in 2002. I guess if you do the math, I was 24,
Don't
so
do
you
the
can probably
math.
don't do the
Don't do
math
the
and figure out how old I am.
math.
But yeah, I mentioned earlier, I was fortunate to grow up in a family where giving was just normal. I watched my parents give, and I remember I got my first job. I don't know how old I was, but I became a paper boy one day. The
Ooh,
proudest moment of my life
I could so see
at
you
that
being a
point.
paper boy.
Yeah. And then I remember, yeah, getting my first. I don't, man, it would be embarrassing whatever I was paid at that point. But I remember going to my parents and saying, "Hey, how do I do this giving thing? I've watched you guys do it. I actually have some
Oh,
money. How do I? I didn't even know how to do it. I didn't.
most
So
people don't.
yeah, I remember that conversation. So it wasn't like this was a new thing, but
Wow.
it was when I was a teacher, went with a charity here in Canada to Namibia, Africa, as a teacher for a full year, and became really close friends with a guy named Kamadi, who I'm still very close friends with after all these years, and just spent a lot of time with him. Actually, he was the one that kind of showed me the ropes and here's what you do and don't do, and really helped me out. And we became close friends. He and I were both the same age. He lived in a house that was like a cement block house with a tin roof, and he didn't have very much, but he was still probably the happiest human being I'd ever met at that point in my life. And so after a couple of months, I thought, I wonder if I sent an email home and raised some funds for Kamadi and his well-being, whether people might donate something and we can help him here. And so yeah, I hadn't done a fundraising. This is my first ever fund. I guess I didn't even look at it as a fundraising initiative. I just wanted to help Kamadi. And
Yeah.
so sent an email to some friends and family here in Ontario. And they sent way more money than I anticipated. Kamadi, if you ever met him, this would not be alarming, but when he got the money that they had raised for him, he gave most of it away right away. He was like,
Mm.
Jay, I can't take this. There's people in this community that need it way more than I do. And he said, come with me.
Sounds like
And
somebody I know, Jay.
we went through this area of town that he lived in, and he introduced me to families and gave the
Mhm.
money away. But then there was some money that he ended up keeping, and we got like a mattress for him to sleep on. He was sleeping on a ripped piece of foam on concrete, and just some basic needs. He had one light bulb that he would bring from room to room to room. So um, we took care of some basic needs, and that was it. And that's what I expected. Just hey, some friends did something nice for my friend, and isn't that amazing? And yet, 2 or 3 days later, this is the thing that changed my whole perspective on generosity. Was um, 2 or 3 days later, I happened to be at his house, and there was a knock at the door, and these women that sort of were the women that sort of cared for people in that community. They were close with him. They came in. They didn't speak much English, so I didn't know all the words they were saying, but he was translating, saying they've come over because they heard that people from Canada donated some money to someone in their community, and they just wanted
Mm.
to see, is it true? And he said, yes, it's true. Look, I have several light bulbs, and look at the mattress that I can now sleep on. And they were just blown away that but people they would knew they would never meet would actually care for one of their people. And in the end, they ended up dancing. He had like an open, it was supposed to be a living room, but there's nothing in it. And so they ended up breaking into this dance that they pulled me off my chair and into I was
Oh,
just making a fool of myself. And in the end, they just broke down into tears, just so overwhelmed. And it was in that moment that I realized that all of the giving that I'd done here in Canada was really void of the actual impact that it made. It wasn't that I distrusted that money I gave did good. I just never got a chance to see it,
right.
experience it, be there when it was received. And in that experience, and it was amazing because it wasn't even my money. I mean, I sent the email, but I didn't donate. And I'm watching and knowing Kamadi and the difference that this has made for him, and then seeing the difference that even this generosity has made for these leaders in the community, and the fact that they're moved to tears and they're joyful. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the essence of giving that more people need to experience.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I waited 11 years. Remember, I said I wasn't an entrepreneur, and I was like, someone's got to do this. And it took 11 years. And 11 years later, I said, okay, I still don't see something happening that helps address this issue. Um, and so, yeah, I started Givesome really not to try to raise a lot of money. I knew that it was going to be in some way, shape, or form a fundraising platform, but the biggest goal for Givesome was always that we would connect the dots, so
Yeah.
that we would a first of all break down barriers that we were learning existed that often prevent people from making that first donation or becoming sort of a regular donor, so to speak. Um, but then connected the dots after they gave. So, like you said, yeah, the platform when it launched, you could give as little as $2 to any project that you saw on there, and whether you gave two or more, you were treated all the same. And
Yeah.
and we would work with the charities that we supported to produce some video content shot mostly on a cell phone, very raw footage, not no music to it, no editing, just hey, you help buy blankets for this community, and here's the community, here's someone here thanking the donors, and something very simple. But our goal was to, rather than sort of maybe guilt people into giving, excite them into giving, that
Yeah.
if you give, you actually do make a difference, and we want to do everything we can to show you the difference you make. And man, it's powerful. I was hoping it wasn't just me that would have that kind of experience, but you'd see, people that did make a habit of giving, and then others who had you probably never really given before, so moved by a simple 45
Yeah.
second poorly shot video, but that showed the impact of their donation, and it's pretty powerful. So that 10 years ago is kind of what launched us, and obviously it's grown and evolved and become more and more things since then. But that's still the core. The core of our mission is not see how much money we can raise, it's see how many people we can
Mhm.
invite into what we call this generosity journey. So that's sort of the
I
background
love
of it.
that commodity story so much, and I think it highlights the ripple effect of giving, not only on those who are receiving the good, but also the people who are doing the good. Because I remember you talking about the people back home who were so excited about the impact that they have, and every time you talk about him having one light bulb and walking that light bulb into every room and screwing it in every time he had to get
Mm,
light in a different room, you just get such wonderful perspective. And I don't think those people who donated to help him just based on trusting you and your ask had any idea the impact and what it was going to feel like in the
yeah,
end. I think they were just doing good for the sake of doing good.
yeah.
And then they hear from you and they see the videos and the pictures and they hear the stories. The generosity journey, like you, is something that I'm so passionate about. And like you, I love introducing people to doing good. I love bringing people to some of my favorite charities, doing work, getting involved, because you kind of touched on this too. I think sometimes people have a general distrust of charities. I don't know where that comes from. I know there's been various scandals and I know there's been, people wonder about the overhead and this and that. And I want to remind people, like, Fortune 500 companies, they spend a lot of money to make money too,
Hmm.
right? And as should charities. Sometimes you have to spend money to make money. And I hope we've gotten to a place where people are less skeptical of where their dollar is going. But I always tell people, if you're not sure where your money's going, go get your hands dirty in a cause that matters to you.
Mm,
Go check out the charity. If you love dogs, go volunteer at the Humane Society. If you love feeding people, there are, emergency kitchens, food banks, shelters that could probably use some help in the kitchen, making meals, packaging meals. If you love working with children, whatever that looks like, if you don't believe, then just go see the good for yourself. And it's how I encourage people to connect with their community all the time, is get your hands dirty in causes that matter to you,
hmm.
especially if you want to build that trust, but also if you want to feel something that you probably don't feel very often.
Mm.
It's that generosity journey is also very contagious. It's infectious. How do you, I mean, you've done this through your work. What are some of the feedbacks and impacts and reactions you've seen people have? Like, any stories stand out to you for people who did something, donated, participated, and they just couldn't believe how it felt and what it meant?
Yeah. Um, let me give you maybe a not so I haven't shared this one all that often, but the first
Mhm,
one that came to mind actually started out very poorly,
mhm,
but turned good. So it's going to sound bad, but it has a bright ending. But I was asked to go up and meet with a guy. He was retired, fairly old, up in the Muskokas, and I was warned that he was a pretty tough guy. I forget what he did in business, but he was a senior business guy and tough as nails type person. And so I went up, drove up there just myself, met in his living room. His wife brought in, like, biscuits and tea and stuff, and
mm.
sort of classic. He was in a high back chair and I was sitting on his couch. And he goes, "So what? I've been told I need to ask what you do. What's this whole Givesome thing?" So I explain it. And he listens until I take my first break. And I'm not exaggerating, he probably spent the next 5 to 10 minutes telling me why everything about the Gibson model and everything that we had built this on was wrong and dumb and was never going to
Oh
work,
gosh.
and was not, didn't hold back. It was like he knew me for years. We just met. And I was like, I rather than sort of be feeling insulted by what he's saying, I was just like, okay, I'm going to stay hopeful. And I just had this idea. A video, and I think you actually know this one, Marissa, but we had
It
just
sounds a
received
little
a
familiar.
video of we raised some money to buy a sewing machine
Yes.
for, yeah, it became a pretty, and it was in one of our videos that we made, but for this, if I can get it right, it was a country in Africa where they were giving younger women the ability to become sort of entrepreneurs and make some money and some
Mm,
income for their families. And so this sewing machine was going to do X, Y, and Z for X number of people, and had a really cool story background to it. And so we raised the funds, and we just got the video. And here he is, just going at me like crazy. And I just said, "Hey, can I just show you? I know you're struggling to wrap your head around this, but can I just show you a video we just got back that just sort of captures why we're doing this and why we've set it up this way?" He's like, okay. So I go around, I'm behind this high back chair with my arm reaching around in front of him. So I can't see him. And I just hit play. And I think it's like a 34-second video of these girls that were the actual recipients. And they just said thank you in their language and then thank you in English. And that was about it. It was really short. And so I played it. So here, just before I tell you what happened, it's a charity he had never heard of. It's a small charity
Mhm.
out of Toronto, amazing executive director named Robin. But Small Charity of Toronto is it was a project he didn't even know existed until that moment, and that he had not supported. Right, so you can't be any less attached to this thing.
Right.
And it was a 30-second video shot on a cell phone that I showed him. So he didn't say anything. I hit stop when it was over, and I went back and sat down. I'm like, all right, let's see where the conversation goes now. And when I sit down, I look at him, and he's crying. This old man who has like torn me apart every wrong business decision and he's just weeping and he just looks at me, and I get emotional in these moments too, but he just looks at me and he goes, I take it all back, do everything you just said. And that was it. It was the end
Mm.
of the conversation. He's like, and it's just, I'm like, oh my gosh, there is another example of the power of generosity. And like you
Yeah.
said, it doesn't always have to be, well, you sort of intimated that it doesn't always have to be giving a lot of money, or he had nothing to do with it, and yet the effects of generosity overwhelmed him.
Yeah.
And that's just not that wasn't just a normal dude. That was a guy that was you know really aggressive. And so I've just got to see so much of that. I get to meet with, often before we work with a lot of what we do now is work with companies, and help with their corporate giving. And so that often gives us a chance to meet, in many cases, the owners or the founders of these companies or the presidents. And these are people making a lot of money and quite influential, and in a lot of cases very well known in Canada. And we get to sit down and talk about giving, um, and watch how they will share a story of their kids or something that happened in their life, and it becomes a very human,
Mm.
connecting conversation very quickly. And it's not because of Givesome, it's not because of our methodology. I think it's because of the topic that we get to talk about all the time, which is
Yeah. So
generosity, and the
human. Yeah.
impact the impact that generosity has on the recipients of that generosity, which is maybe the more obvious one. But like you were sort of hinting at,
Yeah.
the impact that generosity has on the person being generous, which is not always thought about. And so yeah, those are one particular story, but just sort of in general, the conversations and the humanness of conversations that so quickly boil to the surface has been so life-giving for me and the team as we've been able to do that. So
Yeah. And you've really, I mean, you're being modest, but there are some large organizations across this country who have really found a way to bring meaning to all the great work they do, right? It's hard to do charity giving well as a large
mm,
corporation, especially if you're in multiple provinces and demographics and you're serving different people and different stakeholders. What charities resonate with my different, with my clients, with my staff, with my teams, so you've found a way to bring a lot of that together to be able to create meaning and synergistic impact where they can
mm,
all work together. And and I do want to say, I mean, we still need people to cut checks to charities. I mean, let's be honest, we still need the money.
right.
I say we as if I'm representing all the charities, but
You do though.
charity. That's me and all my charities across
Yeah,
this
yeah.
country. No, but big checks are important, but I always tell people it doesn't have to stop there. And I think people go through different phases of life where, sometimes all you have time to do is cut the check, or maybe other times you have more time to volunteer and get your hands dirty. Other times maybe you can do both. But I always challenge people, see what it's like to get involved with causes and give back, and what it does for you and your families. I always bring my kids to these things. And it's one of
Mm,
the things I'll be forever grateful is to have the opportunity to give back with them
mm,
and watch how I bring my children to work with a local charity who we work at an affordable gift market every year. And these are people who are coming in and get to pick a certain amount of gifts for their family. And of course, it's never enough. And I watch my 8-year-old child, him go up to people and, you know, offer them a basket, or
mm,
or he's helping them find something they can't find, or a shoe size for their child, or, um, just the level of compassion, but also dignity that he has to show as an 8-year-old boy towards these people without judging, regardless of how these people are showing up that day. We actually had an incident this summer where my kids were working. I make it sound like they're child laborers now. We were
Yeah, let's be careful
volunteering.
though words.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes. We were volunteering at the same place, which I adore. As part of their backpack program.
Mm,
So the community comes together, partners with this charity, and gives out thousands of backpacks to
mm,
kids who need them, and just in time for the school year. And my kids were giving out backpacks, and noticed that in the lineup of people coming in to pick up their backpacks, there was a family from their school.
mm,
And right away, my kids got nervous and thought, oh no, should we hide? And it was because they didn't want them to feel bad. That was their
mm,
first reaction. Mommy, I don't want them to feel bad because we're here and now we're going to know. Um, and I
mm.
said, no, no, no. I said, you're here doing good. It doesn't change anything about them. People have the right to use these services regardless of their situation. You're going to show them love and compassion like you have every child and family that's come through here. And I'll tell you, that family was actually happy to see my kids. There was
Mm,
some sort of wonderful thing that happened when my kids just showed them kindness and helped them find their favorite color backpack and their favorite color pencil case. And I said to my husband afterwards, I don't know if we could have taught that lesson any other
yeah.
way.
Yeah.
I honestly don't. And I don't say this to like promote my family, but I can tell you the work we do together as a family teaches my kids lessons that I don't know how I would have done that otherwise. And I'm so
Hmm.
grateful. And I know you guys do the same as a family.
Hmm. Yeah. There's what you're saying is there's words we can put together around
Yes.
this, and then there's the experience, right? And the actual thing that can hit home and that you remember. And that's
Yeah.
so much better than any, let's sit down and have a topic, a discussion on generosity
My
and
kids
like,
love when I do that so much.
yeah.
They
So
listen
yeah,
so
so
well.
does
Yeah.
mine. He loves that when I start
Yeah.
anything with that sentence. Yeah, I think yeah, you're right. It's like, well, like look, like I pulled up a story from 2002. Like, could I quickly try to remember anything else that happened that year? Like I just think
Yeah.
experiences um that really get to sort of like, I think generosity is one of the heart, one of the core things just of life, because there's so much more. Like we just like a couple keywords: community,
Yeah.
impact,
Hmm.
difference making. I think our own, the way that it impacts our own hearts. So I think, yeah, any chance, and I love that, any chance that as a younger kid you get to see something, and I bet Marissa, that there will be things that they will remember from that they
Mm.
probably you're not even thinking about, right? That you're looking at that in your adult
Right.
sort of brain, and they're gonna have taken things that they'll share with you maybe 20 years from now and be like, what? That's what's so cool about getting kind of breaking that barrier and making that connection. I think is so powerful and important. And why not start at a young age, right? um,
Right.
I
And
love
again, my
that.
kids aren't saints. Like, they do
Right.
this charity lemonade stand every September, and every year they ask me if they can keep some of the money
Yeah.
because they work so hard. And
Yeah.
I thought, no, you don't get to keep. And then, they're like, well, maybe just no, you don't get to keep it.
Mm,
So, I remember one year my daughter, um, she just, when I would buy her, this is back when I would buy her clothes. I wouldn't dare do that anymore without her permission. She's 11 years old. She has very specific taste. I don't shop for her unless she's present and approves said purchase.
yep.
But this is back
Yep.
when I would buy her clothing and I would notice it would be sitting in her closet.
Yeah.
And she would say, Mommy, I really think we should donate this clothing to charity,
Mm,
which was her way of saying, I'm never wearing
yeah.
it. And so that's when that stopped.
Yeah. You clued in.
I've
Yeah.
clued in. So you have another story that I love that you tell that I think fueled this journey of yours too, back when you were at a conference in Vegas
Mm,
many, many years ago. Not the typical conference or the typical trip to Vegas. This was a
right.
real
Yes. This is
um
PG
this is a
Vegas trip.
PG version. Yeah, but this is a
Yeah.
great story. Can you tell that story too?
Yeah. Yeah. So I mentioned I had that commodity experience. That was 2002, and then I remember I mentioned it was 11 years. So this was why it was 11 years. So now it's 2013, and
Mm,
I'm in Vegas with the company I was working with, and it was a conference of meeting planners from around North America. There's about 5,000, and the company I was with was running part of the conference. And so there was a breakout room, and we after one of the main sessions that we were helping with, and So is at Mandalay Bay in Vegas, and we walk out,
Oh.
and Elvis Presley is standing there in the flesh, and he's trying to get as many people into this massive meeting room as possible. And I think it was about 1,500. I have the math right. 1,500 of us walked in. There was no advertising. No one knew what this was going to be. And we get in. The guy on stage is saying, "Okay, everyone, sit in, break into groups of 3 with strangers, people you don't know. We're about to begin." So I said bye to my
Okay, so
friends.
sorry, I need to ask. So
Yes,
this is
you're
part of the
stuck on
conference.
Elvis, aren't you?
It's like, all
Like,
right,
what's
I'm
the?
back on Elvis.
Yeah.
I'm back on Elvis. So this is part of the conference, though, that you had to go to this breakout room, or you guys were just there, and on a
So
break from the conference, you just followed a random Elvis into a random room.
yeah, so our company helped run part of the conference.
Oh, okay.
But when the main part of the conference on center stage wasn't happening, there were breakout rooms, like tons of them that you
Okay,
could
okay, okay.
decide.
So this
So
wasn't
that's
like a random Elvis off the street saying,
no,
"Come
no.
to
This
me."
was
Okay.
whoever was running that room hired this Elvis guy
Used Elvis.
because you have
Got it.
5,000 people. They wanted to get, and you'll see why they wanted as many people. It was
Yes.
actually for a good reason.
Yes. Okay.
But
I'm back.
there's probably 30 different options. And so, like, well,
Okay.
this isn't going to work if a lot of people don't walk in here. So let's get Elvis to get them in.
Now we know
So
what it takes to persuade you, but that's okay.
just
Keep going.
a man dressed like Elvis. So we get in there, and a guy comes on stage. He goes, "Okay, you think in the next hour we're going to teach you something? We're not going to teach you anything. In fact, no one's going to be on stage saying anything. We are about to dump the contents of a prosthetic hand on everyone's table. It was 500 tables. So I am right, 1,500 people, 500 tables, teams of 3. And we have quality checkers. Don't worry, we'll make sure you're doing it properly. But for the next hour, we're going to build 500 prosthetic hands that we will then give to people who literally need a hand." And I'm like, I'm so glad I walked in here, because I know me, and whatever even if it's an amazing thing they teach, I'm going to forget 6 hours later. I'm not going to, but we're going to build these hands. Like, how much more practical can you get, in helping someone? And the woman across from me, she felt similar to like, her reaction was what I would have expected. The woman in between us hated this idea and was so upset. She was swearing. In fact, she got up when the guy was done, and the hands were coming, like the components were coming to our table. She actually got up to leave, and it turns out these women knew each other. And the one woman who loved it looked at her and said, "Sit down. You're going to embarrass me if you leave." And she sat down, and
Everyone
she
needs a
said,
friend like that.
"Yeah, yeah." So she sat down and put her stuff down, and she goes, "Fine, I'll stay, but I'm not doing this." And she didn't for an entire hour. She never broke. She just sat there, watched this other woman and I build this hand. And so we built this hand, and then at the end, you wrote a little note. You didn't know who was receiving it, but you wrote a little note. "Hey, I'm Jay. I'm from Canada," and da da da. Put it in this like case, and then you go up and you pin it to the board, so you get to see 500 hands.
That's
And I
amazing.
think probably most people thought that was it. And up to that point, it was just a feel good. But this is the thing that was like, whoa, all right, I can't walk away from this. Was the lights went dim? They're like, "We're just going to show a video before you all leave," and they played a video. This is probably only 1 or 2 minutes. This is where the idea for a shaky, crappy video came in, but that was real, because this video that they showed us showed people around the world putting on the exact same hand
Mm.
that we had just built. So we didn't know the people, we didn't know the countries, but we're like, we just built that. Um, and then you got to see people's reaction to getting this hand. And at one point, the one that really stood out, that was like that broke the dam for me, was this boy who I believe was missing both of his hands. And he was sitting at a table, and these 2 gentlemen came in to the room, each carrying one hand. And the first guy put one hand on this boy. He's probably 12 or 13, and he didn't even wait for his other hand to get on. He struggled to picking up this pencil that was in front of him, and then like scribbled something on the piece of paper, and then put the pencil down and broke into tears. And the voiceover said, you know, I don't know if his name was Michael, but this is Michael's first time ever signing his name in his life.
Oh,
And I was like, oof, okay, that just did it. And
yep.
then I thought, I wonder what this woman, so the screen's this way and she's on the, I wonder what she's thinking now. Like, surely this has had to have gotten through to her. And I should mention she was like a tough as nails woman from New York, thick New York accent,
I feel like you
probably in
need
her
to look this woman up
60s.
after the amount of
I
times you
know.
told this
I
story.
wish I still had her business card. I lost her business. I would love to take her out for
If
lunch
you're
and be
out
like,
there, we want to find you.
yes, you changed my life. But so I just looked at her and she, hoping that there'd be some emotion, and she was bawling. Um, and she caught me looking at her, and she just stands up and holds her arms open. And I'm like, really? The video's still playing? And so I stood up. We're both crying now. We both give each other a bear hug and just losing it. And she whispers to me, she goes, Jay, I can't wait to go home and tell my family what just happened,
Mm,
because this just changed my life. And I know that was her words, because when she left, I wrote that down in the little book that I have, and I still have the book here at home. And it was so powerful, because it, again, like that guy in the high back chair, she didn't build a hen. She was pissed off the whole hour she had to be there. She didn't know that this charity existed. She had never met this Michael kid. And she was so moved, as probably a woman probably in her 60s, that she said in her own words it changed her life.
mm,
And so when we exchanged business cards, which I lost, and then everyone filtered out, and I'm sitting there literally physically shaking. I'd never experienced this before. I think it was half like excitement that, okay, I'm actually going to do this, and half like fear, like, holy crap, I'm going to do this. About like, I can't experience what I experienced with Kamadi,
right.
see it happen again in this woman, and then go another 11 years. And my thinking was, I can't let another decade pass without doing something. And so, although I didn't say the words in my head, I'm like, I just quit my job. My son Jackson was
Mm,
like, I think he was a year old at the time. Not the
gosh.
best time to kind of figure things out, career wise. But yeah, so within 12 months from that time, left my full time job, started Givesome, did a lot of research about giving and the state of giving, and why don't people give, and if you're going to build something that drew people in, what would it need to look like, and interviewed a lot of people, and then eventually brought in my partner Adam, who you also
Yes.
know, who
Yes.
is everything I'm not. I'm sort of it was amazing, because I knew I needed a skill set that I didn't have, and he's an amazing, amazing guy. But we're
You
so
guys are a
opposite.
lovely couple.
Yes, we met. Yeah, we met. Yeah, I won't actually. We met playing hockey.
Of course you did. Yes.
And so, anyways, yeah. So we partnered together. Within the first year, he came in, and then yeah, we built Give Some, basically based off of those two experiences that really rocked me. And he has his own experience that he could share. That this isn't just
Hmm.
joining Jay's vision. He has his own piece of this, and yeah, it's been an adventure ever since. So yeah, those are okay. We just got into the two sort of key stories that
Yeah.
kicked this whole thing off. Yeah.
I've heard those stories many times, and every time, um, yeah, I mean, I think it's funny how much persistence and commitment generosity could also take sometimes. And I know
Mm.
that it doesn't have to be so hard, but I think it's like a muscle, right? You need to flex that generosity muscle often to make sure
Mhm.
you really can enjoy the impact of it, right?
Yeah.
And that's not selfish. It's a wonderful thing to be able to feel the good of doing good, and it has a ripple effect. I think about that all the time. I mean, I met you 10 years ago, and you talked about Adam, your partner, and launching this. You have also attracted many other very successful, very wonderful people to support you in this journey, to work for the foundation, to support the cause, to partner with all the different companies you've worked with and supported, the charities. You've just created a movement of people who want to get behind something that
Mm.
matters, who are just so compelled to be a part of it. I mean, I've told you since the day I met you, I'll do anything. I'm behind
Yeah.
you 100%. I'll do anything you
And 10
need.
years later, you're still here. So good for you. You meant
I
it.
am.
I'm
Yeah. I mean,
going
it's
to
just
keep
such a
holding you to
wonderful
it.
thing. What's that? You're gonna hold me to
I'm
it?
going to
Yeah.
keep holding you to it. Yeah.
You should. You should. Yeah. You haven't made any crazy demands yet. So
Yeah. I
who knows?
know.
Those could be coming. But it's just a beautiful thing to be a part of something, right? And we all hear the data on the research of I was actually just listening to a podcast the other day, and they were talking about a study of people on their deathbed and what people regret and
Mm.
what, really makes them feel like they had a fulfilled life. And it has nothing to do with things and material goods. It has to do with love. It has to do with relationships, but it also has to do in a large part of feeling like you had impact in this
Yeah.
world. Like
Yeah.
at the end of your days, feeling like I did something that mattered. And I love that you found a way originally, I think, to connect with individuals and humans. And then you have found a way to engage companies so you can connect with more individuals. I mean, human companies are just humans, right?
Yeah.
Companies are just as, strong as the people that, work for them, support them, are behind them. Let's talk a little bit about that, because we talked about the ups and downs of Givesome and the evolution, really just needing to evolve the charity in terms of where our world is going and constantly changing. You have since launched See the Good Foundation. Can you talk to me a little bit about that initiative?
Yeah. So we are now three entities, which is crazy. In the early days, we started with it's called Give Some Foundation. It was a registered um, nonprofit, but not a full fledged charity. So we couldn't do receipting. But in those days, with smaller donations, that wasn't a big deal. And then when we started getting requests from companies, the original thought was not to do anything with companies, but when they started saying, well, this thing you're doing, we give a lot of money away. We want help
Mhm.
doing that. Could you help us with that same sort of thinking? And so we started a for profit company so that the foundation wouldn't get sidetracked on its mission. And so it was really good. The foundation and the for profit would work in tandem. The foundation would focus on the charitable component and the charities that were being supported, and the for profit would focus on the corporate focuses and what the companies needed and bring those
Yeah.
together. And then, yeah, we launched within the past 12 months. We launched it's called See the Good Foundation, but it is a full fledged registered Canadian charity that can issue tax receipts. And we are all entities working towards, a very similar goal of introducing generosity to more and more people. And I'm not the founder of See the Good. I'm not the executive director. I'm not on the board. That's a guy named MJ right now, is just a phenomenal person. But See the Good is, again, just getting its legs, just getting going, but it has this amazing focus on both the charity, wanting to support small and medium sized charities, who I really have a heart for. I have nothing against larger charities, but the larger charities tend to be the ones that everyone knows about, right?
Right.
And
Yep.
you know, the more years I've spent in this, I've met so many unbelievable 3 or 4 person charities that no one's heard of that are incredible. And
Yeah.
so to have See the Good launch with a significant focus on supporting those small and medium sized charities in a variety of different ways, and then looking to and you were part of sort of our brainstorming on this a couple of weeks ago, but looking to launch an initiative that gets people being able to work in tandem with others, whether it's within their family or their work setting or their friendship group, to launch a team that focuses on a particular cause, to put a small amount of money away every month in towards that cause, but having everyone do that collectively, which then turns
Yeah.
into a decent sum. And then working with See the Good and their connections in the charity space to be able to give those sums of money as grants to small and medium sized charities who are doing just phenomenal work, and then work with those charities once the money's been given to bring the impact of that donation back to that team of people that have supported it. So a team of people can say, well, we want to support mental health initiatives, or we want to
Right.
support children's based initiatives, and so they put a certain amount of money in, and then the charity, See the Good, will give that away. And then every month we'll report back and say, okay, this month it went to this charity, and here's what it helped support in some
Love that.
very tangible, real focus. So it's like, I know what this giving is doing. I'm learning about other charities that are supporting a cause that I really care about, and some really amazing small and medium sized charities are getting supported. So I get a win all around.
Yeah.
In addition to that, the fact that they exist, they're teaming with us so that people that donate on any of the initiatives that we run on our side will get tax receipts now for the first time ever, which is really cool. Not everyone is motivated by a tax receipt, but if they are and they want one, then the tax receipts are
It's
not
great.
available. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's been really cool to see it sort of grow into more than just the one thing that I'd initially sort of pictured. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's evolved to meet the needs of what's happening in our country, in our communities. And sadly, we find ourselves in a time when there's more people needing a little bit of help. And you're right, there are small charities popping up everywhere to meet very niche needs or specific needs. And it's just a group of do gooders out there trying to give back. And it is nice to highlight the work of those people. And I talked about this earlier. I mean, these small charities don't necessarily have the overhead or the resources or the staff to go out there and fundraise or put on galas or do that type of stuff. But um, they're doing very important work and need that. And I love how you are just so in the mindset of doing the good, bringing people along with you and showing them the way, but also giving them the space to go out and take this wherever it needs to go. It's just been so fun for me to watch you do this over the
Mm.
years. I also enjoy our latte dates.
Yeah.
Um, notice I didn't talk with my hands today. They're just
You've
like,
been so good. Yeah. Flipper has not emerged in this conversation. And just for those listening, I get mocked on the lattes. You're trying to make it sound like you're pro
I am
latte,
not
but
mocking you.
you've always mocked me for the big lattes that get
The size of your
delivered.
head.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it's only fair. You mock me because I talk with my hands, and I think I'm doing a pretty good job today. They have been
Phenomenal. I don't
hiding
think
under
I've
my
seen your hands
desk.
once. Good
I know.
good on you. Yeah.
It's amazing I've been able to articulate this entire time. Although I think I've told you the story before. I remember being on, well, it must have been a very early date with my husband because we were holding hands. And I don't remember the last time that happened, but we were holding hands walking down the
And
street
you
and I
couldn't
was
say
trying,
anything. You couldn't talk probably.
I was completely
Just
mute. And I was
uh,
trying to tell a story and he literally, and gosh, we were dating for not very long at this point. He lets go of my hand and looks at me. He's like, just continue what you were saying. Like, I'll let you get it out. Because obviously I was,
yeah.
not able to get my thoughts out, which is sad. But anyways, it's the Italian in me. I like to move my hands around when I
Yeah. That's
when I
right. There's
speak.
nothing
But
wrong with that. Yeah, it's
no.
okay. It's just I'm more your hands are usually closed and they're just doing
Yeah.
like
People who can't see, he's literally, swishing flippers around as if I
yes, like you would
took
imagine a
flippers.
dolphin doing. Yeah. Yeah.
This is why you and I don't have any fun together. Oh, goodness. Okay, so we don't have a lot of time left, but I'm not
Yeah.
letting you go. I want to talk to you two quick things. If people want to give back, I know I mean, you and I are so versed in this space. We've spent a lot of years in this space. We know people. How do people give back? What can you do? Where do you start if someone
Mm.
wants to do something, a company or a person?
Well, yeah, I mean, those are two different things. A quick answer for both. I was going to say this earlier after one of your stories. My biggest suggestion for your person wanting to give back, and this might sound a little selfish, but it is not, because when you find this, it makes such a big difference. Is find something you love.
Mm, hmm.
Um, and it's okay if someone comes to your door looking for funds for something that just doesn't necessarily connect with you. It's okay that you don't give to every single thing.
Yeah,
Find the cause that you really actually are passionate about. That'll make all the difference when it comes to your energy around that giving, when it comes to your interest in that giving, when it
totally.
comes to ideas around doing more than maybe cutting a check or making an online donation. Find something you love and then become passionate about. That's not bad. That's actually a really good thing. It's actually one of the reasons why at Givesome we make it tangible projects versus just supporting a general charity. That you may not know what this charity does, but this project that we put on there might really resonate with you. Well,
Yeah,
fall in love with that and give to the things that you really care about. There's enough other people out there that care about the other things. And so
absolutely.
find the thing that you find. Now, you could say, well, how do you find something you love? Well, that's maybe episode number 2.
Yeah.
But I would start there. For the company, I would say, first of all, a disclaimer: any company that is giving of their profits to charity is doing a really good thing.
Yes,
But
absolutely.
within that really good thing they're doing, there are ways that you can take that corporate giving and actually create more of an impact than just maybe the linear way that a company is often thinking. And that would be, um, find out if you're open to it. If you want to make more of an impact through the same number of dollars you give away every year, find out, and there's a lot of different ways you can do it, find out what your people care about
Mm,
at your company. Um, and it doesn't mean you need to stop supporting the thing you've always supported. I never recommend that for a company, because that charity you have a good, strong partnership perhaps with the charity, keep funding them. But maybe there's a piece of what you can do in a particular year that actually looks to address things that your employees care about. And you're right, you're not going to find one charity that every single employee is like, oh my gosh, yes, that's the charity. But if you have an eye to that and you want to weave in a way of giving back to things that your
Yep.
people care about, there's a lot of different ways you can do that. And now when you communicate you're giving to your company, it's not just, hey, an email, we gave X number of dollars to X charity, which really, if you think about it, doesn't really have anything to do with their employees. But hey, we continue to support the cause we've always cared about. Here's why we care about it. But this year we listened, and there's a number of you that really care about this space, and here's what we did
Yeah.
in this space. And
Yep.
thank you for putting this on our radar. And what a wonderful charity or charities we end up working with. It does so much better for the charity. It gives them so much more recognition than just a C-suite cutting a check. It makes their people engaged. And I think a lot of companies may not realize the influence that they can have on their people.
Yeah.
You nailed it earlier, Marissa, when you said companies are just people.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of people within a certain, I was going to say within certain four walls, but now so much is
Yeah.
remote.
Many
It's not
walls.
even four
Yeah.
walls anymore.
Yeah.
But so I think companies have a real huge opportunity to make an impact, not just on the charities they support,
Yeah.
but
Their
on the people
clients. Yeah.
and their
Everyone.
customers. Yeah,
Yeah.
we've had a lot of companies say that to us. Help us engage with our customers through this giving. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of really interesting ways that you can do
Yeah.
that. So yeah, I think that's where I would start. If I'm in a company, think about your employees. I maybe start with your employees.
Yeah.
What do they care about? How can you weave them into your giving and have an
Mm-hmm.
impact on them while you impact the charity? And then if you're an individual, what do you care about? And if you don't know, wow, that's an amazing like
Ask Chat GPT, they'll tell you. What
yes.
do I like? What do I care about?
They probably, yeah, they know you better than you know yourself, right?
Probably.
Yeah,
Probably. Yeah.
that's
That's great
scary.
advice because I
Yeah.
think, and I've seen the work you've done with companies. It's unbelievable. I mean, people can listen to this podcast and who are business owners or executives or people within an organization, reach out to Jay at Givesome and see the good. There's immense opportunity to really leverage that for so much impact.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I think that's incredible. I want to do a rapid fire session with you before you
Okay,
go. Do you have time? Can
fire
you
away. I
stick
do.
around? Okay.
Yes.
All right. This is a leadership podcast and obviously you're here because I think you're an amazing leader. What in your opinion makes a great leader?
Mm. Not maybe what you expect. I would say a great leader is someone who fails,
Mm.
which is maybe a little shocking, and then admits that failure. And there's
Ooh.
two reasons I say that. One is if you fail as a leader, and and others can see that you fail once in a while, for me that becomes a very human leader. And I just don't resonate with people who aren't human or who I just don't feel like
Yeah.
are like me. I'm aware that I fail a lot too. So I think showing as a leader that you fail makes you relatable, and I think makes you a way better leader once you're relatable and see people see that you're human. And then the admission of the failure and being open around it shows an element of humility.
Yeah.
And I think that's for me anyways. That's, I don't know if there's much. I mean, obviously you need to have leadership qualities, but if you have humility in addition to the leadership qualities that it takes to be a leader, man, it's a breath of fresh air. It's someone
Yeah.
that you can immediately lean into trusting because they're going to be open and vulnerable and humble. Um, so yeah, I think those for me in my life, I think someone that fails and that is open about that failure, in addition to having, some leadership qualities and I think that's huge for
Yeah.
me. Sorry, that wasn't a rapid fire answer. I'll be
No, it was
quicker.
not.
I'll be quicker with my answer. Sorry.
You're a liar. And that's okay. Uh, what are like some words of wisdom you wish you could go back and share with your younger self?
uh, I would say don't take everything so seriously.
Mm. Hmm.
And it's not like I didn't have fun as a kid or that fun is not part of my life, but I think for whatever reason, I felt like I grew up faster than I needed to and was tried to be more mature or more, older than I ever was or needed to be at the time. And looking back, I'm like, man, I wish I just had more fun and let my 12-year-old self be a 12-year-old kid and not try to be
Yeah.
18 when I'm 12. That would be one. And then a thing I wish I'd heard earlier was a good friend of mine gave this advice that's really stood out. He's because I was a bit of a people pleaser, had a bit of people pleasing
Mm-hmm.
in me, and he said, Jay, you'll stop worrying about what people think about you when you realize they don't think about you.
Yep.
And man, that's so true. Obviously, when you're in front of that person, they think about you. You're right there. But I often was too worried about what people were thinking about me hours later, and I now realize they're not thinking about me hours later. They moved on. They have their own worries and their own
Yep.
family and children and life to worry about. So I think, yeah, you'll stop worrying. Don't worry what people think about you. They're not thinking about you.
Nope.
It's just all in your head. So I think those two things would be big for me.
Yeah. It's a universal truth. It's so hard to swallow that pill, but once you do, it puts a lot of other things in perspective
Yeah,
for you, for sure.
yeah.
What is your favorite way to give?
Anything, anything in person,
Mm,
anything personally. It's not to say I don't, make an online donation, but any chance I have to help someone who maybe doesn't expect it,
yeah.
and I get to do it sort of almost shoulder to shoulder. That for me is amazing. You get to it becomes more than just a giving experience. It's there's a human element to that. There's you remember the person that it
Yep.
probably stands out more for the person. And so yeah, anything, it's pretty open ended, but anything where you get to actually be there shoulder to shoulder with the person, that would be my choice for sure.
Yeah. I thought about that question when I was preparing to ask you, and I thought, the reason I love to give randomly,
Mm,
and it's because some of the most impactful gestures I think I've received in my life have been unexpected from people that, to your point, maybe I knew them, but I sure as heck wasn't expecting them to show
yeah,
up in that way in that moment.
yeah.
And I love random unexpected. And I challenge people to that, especially right now. You and I are recording during the holiday season. It's a stressful time. Is there like a random person in your life who, like,
Mm.
this person, or you see this person, or you interact with this person sometimes? Maybe they're a stranger, maybe they're not fully a stranger. Can you do something for them that would be totally, those are just the most magical moments of giving, like random giving. So impactful.
On that,
Yes.
and giving, we did a couple years ago, a thing on Instagram where we did 52 different ways to give,
Mm,
and we focused on that for one particular way per week for 52 weeks. And you know what the most impactful thing was,
what?
for me anyways, in all 52, was just looking someone in the eye and acknowledging their existence and saying hello.
Oh, yeah.
You don't often think of that as being generous. It's a
Yeah.
different kind of generosity, but it's, hey, I notice you,
Yes.
I acknowledge your existence, and I'm gonna just be kind for a nanosecond. Just
Yeah.
hello, hi.
It's
And,
so
and
true.
most often it caught people by surprise, but often they would say it back. And so when you say that, the first thing that came to mind is it's not finding that person that you might think of and then giving them money.
Right.
That's
No.
probably in most cases probably not that. It would be
Right.
send an email, a phone call, an encouragement, and
Yeah.
thinking about
Random
you. It's
text. Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
that is all encompassed. That's all part of the whole generosity thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love that
As you
challenge.
As you said that, I have another challenge for people, because every
Okay.
time I go to Tim Hortons and I order in the drive-through, the first words out of my mouth when they ask, "How can I help you?" is, "Hi, how are you today?" And it gets every time they're like, hi, thank
No
you."
one says that to me. I don't
And
know. How
my
do I
daughter every
respond?
time is like, "Oh, you're so embarrassing. Like, stop." And I honestly got to the window the other day, just last week, and the woman says, "I don't remember the last time somebody asked me that. Thank you." And just for what
Oh,
it's worth, she gave me a free Timbit. So who's winning now?
a whole free
A
Timbit.
whole Timbit. I was quite happy about that Timbit,
Yeah.
but I was glad because my daughter was in the car when it happened, because she's
Mm,
always bugging me for making chit chat, random conversation with strangers, saying hello to people, smiling. She's like, "Do you know that person?" I'm like, "No." She goes, "Why are you smiling and waving?" I'm like, "Why?
yeah.
Why not?" Drives
Yeah.
her nuts.
Wow.
And she was in the car when that happened. So I challenge other people: say "How are you?" to the person on the other side of the drive-through and see what they say.
That's a great moment to do it too. Hey,
It's
isn't it?
free.
Yeah.
It's free. You can
It's
do
so
it every
easy.
time. It's so
Yeah.
easy. Okay, listen, I could talk to you forever, but we're gonna have
Yeah.
to do this over a big fat latte
Yes,
some other
please.
time for
After
you, not
Christmas.
me. Yeah, after
Yeah.
Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can do your
Um,
chai tea or whatever you do.
whatever it is that I drink. Listen, thank you. You are an amazing human. I've told you this before and I will say it again. I'm going to say it to your face and I'll say it behind your back, but the world needs more people like you who have just really made generosity their battle cry in everything
Mm.
that they do and how they show up. So I just want to say thank you for finding me. I'm so glad we connected many, many
Yeah, me
years
too.
ago. And hopefully through this podcast, people will also find you and all the work that you do. There's the Givesome website. There are handles on Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram, LinkedIn. Yeah.
Find you. Find Jay.
Givesome.com.
Yes.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Givesome.org is the platform. Givesome.com is our more traditional website. And yeah, I'm not on
Amazing.
social media a ton myself.
That's okay.
But yeah, people can email me, just jay
Of course.
at givesome.ca. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, we'll do this again soon. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for being here. I so appreciate you and I wish you all the best.
You too, Marissa. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
I could say the same thing back. I've learned a lot from your heart for giving. I know that you've been employed in different ways, but in your free time and everything you're about is about giving back. And so I've learned a lot from you over the years, and we
Thank
got
you.
a lot of years left, right?
Oh
I
yeah.
think I hope so.
Again, we're not
So
going to do the
let's
math.
no, but there's a lot of good things
Yeah,
ahead.
I
Yeah,
suspect you and I have a lot more damage to do for good in the future.
yeah, I
So,
like that way of putting it.
mhm.
That's cool.
All right, friend, take it easy. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.